FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's the 10th of July, 2018. Hard to know, hard to believe, but hey, it's almost 2 years since President Trump came along. And don't forget, send me your emails to kl@kerrylutz.com. First thing I do every day is I drive to an unnamed dispenser of caffeine. I'll give you a little hint. If you're homeless, you're welcome there. If you don't want to buy anything, they're delighted to have you. Come and use the bathroom anytime. Just they're a public service. I just happen to buy a latte. If you're interested in my drink, what I drink, everybody has their drink there. kl@kerrylutz.com. Well, getting on to it. And importantly, somebody I've been reading his work for several years now. Amazing insights. He called the election, much as yours truly did, for President Trump. Somehow we both had the same belief, same inner core. We just saw it coming. While none of the so-called pundits did, and none of the polls did for sure. His name is Don Surber. Don, welcome to the Financial Survival Network.
Thank you. The Financial Survival Network is new to me, but it's something that we all need to do. You have to take care of yourself in a democracy. You can't rely on the government, and that's very, very good.
Hey.
You talked about the election. When Trump gave his first speech, when he announced he was going to run, I listened to him, and I thought, well, if you take away some of the flourish there, what he's saying is a very good idea for the Republicans. We have to stop illegal immigration. I said, boy, this would be great. If somebody else picks up on that, they're going to win. Nobody else picked up on it.
No, they all want it. All of the GOP establishment elite all want that cheap labor flooding in over the border. And hey, so if the Democrats pick up undocumented voters, isn't it great? But somehow you just intuitively knew that he was going to resonate with the public. Now, you've been in the newspaper business a long time, so you're supposed to have these instincts. But how did you know?
Newspaper people are usually the last to know about what the public's thinking. I wrote editorials for 26 years, so I lived in that little ivory tower. But I always had my doubts about what was going on, and I started off as a factory worker, and then I went to the Army, and I was a reporter for the Stars and Stripes. And then I got out, and I was a factory worker again. I went through college, and then I became a reporter in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and went to a bigger paper and worked there for 30 years. I think the pulse of the people, you have to be out with the people. And, Selena Zito, our wonderful reporter from Pittsburgh, who actually goes to the rallies and actually talks to the people. And when you talk to people, when you contact people, you understand where they're coming from. And when you live in an area, as I do, where you have closed chemical factories, you remember it was only 10, 15 years ago, there were thousands of people working in the chemical industry in our area, and now there's a few hundred. You realize that people are losing hope and faith in their country. And they were, people call them the forgotten Americans, and they were forgotten. And Trump realized that somebody has to remember these people and serve them and put America first again. It took me a few months to really realize he's going to get the nomination and win the whole thing. I thought he would do better. I thought he'd take 40 states. But he was up against the media, and he was up against someone who spent twice as much money, and he was up against a bipartisan machine against him. So he took 30 states, which is phenomenal.
Hey,
nobody had done that since Clinton in '96. So nobody had done that in 20 years. He took 30 states.
That's pretty good. 30 out of 57 isn't bad, right?
Yeah, 57. Yes.
Yeah, I always thought there were
I think
57.
at 56, didn't Guam tip over?
Oh,
We put too many Marines there?
Or maybe the Virgin Islands just kind of sank in the last hurricane.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't keep track of those states, man. I always thought there were 50 stars on the Stars and Stripes. So you kind of got this feeling early on that this guy was onto something. And I had dealings with him, very minor dealings in my former life as an attorney 20 years ago. But my gut feel was this guy is a showman. He knows how to get his name out there. He knows how to dominate a conversation or a debate and become the center of attention. And the media played right into his hands, Don. Why did they do that? They had to know that they were helping elect him.
Because they're idiots. I mean, really.
Are they that stupid?
These guys are big heads, and they're idiots. They think they know everything, and these so-called national reporters. When did any of them get outside the Beltway? When did they do that?
Yeah.
They don't know West Virginia. They think West Virginia is a Democrat state.
Yeah, it was the Clinton stronghold not too long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, it wasn't. We finally, what was it, 2014, we finally got a Republican legislature after 82 years. I mean, but we had backed Bush in 2000. And remember, he won by just 2 or 3 votes. And we were 5 votes. We were the reason he went over. Of course, he needed every state he got.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
It was the first time we had voted for a Republican since Reagan. Mm-hmm. And we only did that on his second term. First term, we went with Carter. What I like, I've written 3 books about Trump in the press. I did one about his nomination, and then one about his election, and then one about his his first year in office. And I write them in real time. Mm-hmm. People say, "Oh, you just caught on the bandwagon." No, I was writing the book about him winning the election months before he won it. I mean,
you were the bandwagon.
And even if you're a retiree, it's a lot of time and effort. But I was really enjoyed it, and having been a journalist who wrote on Deadline, it was kind of fun to get back into that.
Absolutely. Hey, we're talking with Don Surber. You find his work at Don Surber, Surber, blogspot.com. Hey, one of my favorite things, Don, is if I'm feeling a little down for the day or I need a good pick-me-up, I go over to YouTube and I type in Trump election upset. And I am presented with a plethora of failed left-wing media personalities saying, he'll never be president, or Nancy Pelosi, he'll never be president, and you can take that to the bank. And George Clooney saying, Donald Trump will never be president of the United States, and Obama saying it. I mean, it's one after the other. And
I forget the name of the British comedian who's in America, but he said, "Do it, run."
Yeah, right.
You're not going to win. Do it. And you look at that, some of that stuff when it was happening, I realized this guy, you're guaranteeing it. My favorite was the mic drop by Barack Obama. Well, at least I'll go down as a president.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, hey, and so does Donald Trump. So, but the point is, it's not just Schadenfreude getting off on their misery, although there's a lot to get off on there, I will admit. But it's the fact that here you have a guy who never held office before, never in the military, seemingly in the establishment's definition, completely unqualified to hold the office, taking on 16 Republicans who were seasoned. They were the best that the Republican Party could offer up for 2016 to take on Hillary, and making handiwork of them, one by one, just ripping them to shreds and tossing them off to the side. And the next thing, Marco Rubio drops out. And the next thing, Jeb is gone. And, the governor.
They drop like flies.
Yeah.
What happened here was historic. You can go back to the Greeks and the Romans. When the political system fails, somebody from the business class gets in there, somebody from the professional class gets in there and straightens it up. We've seen this happen in our lifetimes in Argentina and Brazil, and Italy's done it a couple times. And the new guy in Italy, and there's Berto Saluta. I can't pronounce
I know who you mean. He's
and he was brought in from nowhere, from outside in. And you do that when your political system fails. Now, people are practical. If the political system's working, we look the other way about bribery and the little scandals they have,
and adultery and whatever. It doesn't matter. So,
but when you don't have jobs, when you have people just running over our border, when you have Iran getting billions of dollars for doing nothing, when you have America feeling like it's just a small power, like Liechtenstein. Yeah, that's a feeling. It's nothing close to the reality. But when you have all these empty factories and there's all these imports from China, that people say no, and they rise and they voted for Trump. And he was an imperfect vessel. Of course, they all are. And here's the thing that's fun. He's doing something no politician seems to do. He's keeping his promises.
Yeah. Funny how that
remember
works.
they said he's going to appoint liberals to the Supreme Court. Well, we got Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Are they liberals?
Funny how that works, huh?
Yeah, and he got the tax cuts through. Not only did he get the tax cut on the income tax, but the really big thing was getting the tax cut on that corporate tax, getting it from 35% down to 21%. And you, of all people, would know the importance of that.
For sure. For sure.
Explain that.
Yeah, well, it's really important because there really shouldn't be a corporate income tax anyway, because we all pay it as customers of the corporation, and it puts them at a competitive disadvantage. So this is progress in the right direction. And I wrote that he's going back for tax cut part 2 and part 3, just the same way Reagan did. He's already got them lined up, and they're going to go through. So I'm
disappointed that the corporate, he just wants to drop it from 21% down to 20. I was hoping to get 15.
Yeah, but individual taxes too. But corporate taxes, in terms of growing the economy, much more important than individual taxes, because individuals are just going to blow their tax return on little things like paying debt back and flat screen TVs. Corporations might actually invest. I would have liked to have seen them prohibit or control stock buybacks, but politics is the art of the possible.
Well, yeah, and the corporate tax helps small people too, like me. I have IRA, and it's all in stock index fund.
Sure.
Vanguard, I boggle, or is that bogle? I've never really understood what the name is. No, and I've been very, very happy with it over the years. But that helps me. The corporate tax cut helps me. Puts the stock up $1. That's lots of money to me. You have to have that, and you have to get these factories opened again.
Correct.
Or maybe replaced by new factories. The people are talking about the tariffs and all that. Republicans have been for tariffs from Lincoln to Reagan. Reagan had 18 different tariffs that he increased to get what he wanted.
Correct.
He wanted to get Japan to build autos here. And so he slapped a tariff on them, and Toyota decided, you know what, we're going to open up a plant or 2 or 11.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the Bushes, they weren't into tariffs. They were into globalization. And Reagan's brought us back to our roots, which is protectionism and putting America first. And people, the intellectuals tell us that's wrong. Well, they've never worked in a factory.
Yeah.
A factory work's a lot of fun. It's not like it's depicted in the movies. You're not a little widget and the whole thing. You get to do a lot of things. Back in the 70s, when I was starting out, I have 4 sisters and my mother. and all 5 of those families had somebody working in the factory.
Interesting.
Now, my nieces and nephews and my children, I can't think of one that's working in a factory.
No, none of my kids. No, definitely not.
You could quit a factory job back in the day and get a job someplace else the next day.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do that now.
Yeah, that's so true. That's a great point. That was the pathway to the middle class dream, the American dream, for someone who didn't go to college, had no intentions. In fact, back then, not many people did go to college. That was more an outgrowth of the Vietnam War and being able to beat the draft by going to college. So you really were able, it was a lot different back then. Just say that. So where we're heading, what are you seeing in West Virginia? Factories opening up, mines are reopening?
We're getting, the mines will never be back to the huge growth. It's sort of like New Yorkers like to talk about the opera and all that they have, Metropolitan Opera. We like to talk about coal. It's a symbol of the state. There's not that many coal jobs. There's maybe 50,000 people that work for coal, direct miners, and then the auxiliary people to support people. But it's a symbol of West Virginia, and it's also cheap electricity for us.
Right.
I remember a few years ago, I was talking about how many kilowatt hours I used of electricity, and I said 2,000. The guy asked, "How could you afford that?" And I said, "Well, I'm paying 8 cents a kilowatt hour."
Yeah, sure.
Only Idaho, with its great hydroelectric dams, was cheaper at the time. But the mines are not. They're not going to come back like they were. But the factories, we're starting to get some work. We've had fracking, and our fracking is for natural gas and not for oil.
Sure.
And we're hoping that we can use that to make plastics. They call it petrochemicals, but it's basically plastics.
Right.
We use it as a feeder stock, and it'd be cheaper than oil.
For sure.
So we're hoping they get that. We've also got some intellectual stuff, a small Silicon Valley going up in the northern part of the state near West Virginia University. When you buy a gun, they do a background check. All those background checks are done in Clarksburg, West Virginia. So we're using that as sort of police identity, forensic industry is coming out of that with computers and all that, so you can identify people and do some of that crime lab stuff. And that was the only thing I really liked about Bob Byrd. The Fingerprint Center, which is what it was, the FBI Fingerprint Center in Washington, they needed a new one. So he took it and he put it in West Virginia, and the jobs in D.C., they were low-paying jobs. Here in West Virginia, they were high-paying jobs, so we got the best people there. So it really worked out pretty well there, and now we're getting an industry there.
That's so funny.
Our unemployment rate is generally about a point higher than the rest of the nation when we're doing well. CNBC had a rating today of each of the states. Said Texas was number 1. We were number 48. So,
all right, got a ways to go. There's a ways to go.
It's an opportunity.
But point is, there's a feeling of optimism. And,
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is the Trumpiest state. I mean, we really do support Trump. We like him. We think he's really a good man, and he has our best interests at heart. You have to understand that West Virginia, a lot of West Virginians this day they're not really looking for work. We have a lot of old people like me who are retired, and our children go live in other states. They move to North Carolina. They move to South Carolina. They move to Akron.
Right.
To get jobs. That's been the way of life since World War II.
Right.
So you got 70 years of that.
So
that's been the way it works.
So you got an election coming up for senator. Supposedly Manchin's ahead, but I'm not buying the polls, okay? Because the polls, anything having to do with Trump, anything he touches, the polls instantly become unreliable. It's funny the way it works. What's your take on him? Is he going to get reelected, Joe Manchin, or And even if he goes against the president on Brett Kavanaugh, voting for him for Supreme Court, what's going to happen here?
Well, I think he's got to vote for Brett Kavanaugh if he wants to win. And I don't know that he wants to win. Joe's been around 20 years, 30 years.
Too long.
State office. He was a Secretary of State. He was governor. He's now senator. You know, he's in his late 60s now. Maybe even approaching 70. Do you want to spend your 70s as a member in the backbencher as a member of Senate, as a part of the minority party? Who wants to do that?
Yeah, and he is a backbencher. Yeah.
So he may be wanting out. I don't know. We'll see. If he votes for Kavanaugh, then he has a shot at it. If he doesn't, I don't think he will win.
Interesting. Well, hey, and then looking ahead to 2020, Trump gets reelected?
That's the track record. Obama did, Bush did, Clinton did, Reagan did.
Only Bush 41 didn't. Only Bush 41.
But Carter didn't, and Bush 41 didn't.
Yeah.
So the odds are probably in favor of a second term. This is different than the 19th century when they basically served one term and that was it.
Yeah, one and done.
So that's how I'm going to say it. I look at history. I knew Trump had it won when he took Ohio, because in the 20th century, only one person took Ohio and didn't get elected president, and that was Nixon in 1960. So you have to look at the history on these elections.
Oh, yes.
History will tell you. And I think he's doing well enough in Ohio that he could pull it off.
And Florida. I think the way the map is now, although now that Trump has broken through the blue wall in the Midwest, in the Rust Belt, and he'll probably go up there, I think that's become Republican for the next generation, assuming that the economy continues to improve, factory jobs, mining, et cetera. Probably doesn't strictly need Florida, but Florida will put him over the top. He'll wind up with more electoral votes than he got last time, because he will actually probably get Minnesota. They're coming around. There's a lot of these Senate races here that are kind of divorced from the left's version of reality. But I guess we're going to find out soon. So your book.
Let me say something about the Senate.
Sure.
In the last election, there were 12 Senate races in the states that Hillary took. Democrats took every one of those 12 races. There were 22 Senate races in the states that Trump took. Republicans took every single one of those states.
Right.
There were no ticket splitting there. Ticket splitting was not done that year in the Senate races. I don't think that ever happened before.
That's remarkable.
You always need to have a split in the state. So,
so what can we learn from that?
Maybe that'll cross over to the Senate races this year, and we'll see. But living in a Trump state, in the most Trump state, we supported Trump better than anybody. And Manchin seems to be the favorite. Don't bet against Manchin at this point.
Yeah, he's been around a long time, and he's been a Democrat in a state that's been shifting more and more red by the election. So here in Florida, where I live, it's really interesting. Rick Scott was the most unpopular governor in the country, and he managed to get reelected because somebody who was even less popular than him ran against him, Charlie Crist. And then, the economy's been booming in Florida since around 2013-14. And he's just been upward momentum. And then his handling of our hurricanes here in Florida, all the weather events, all of a sudden people love Rick Scott, and they're crying that he's going to be leaving. But he's running for senator, and he's gotten the jump on Bill Nelson. Like, half the state doesn't even know who Bill Nelson is, even though he's been in the Senate for nearly 20 years. And Florida went red last time. It's going to go red in 2020. Just a remarkable turn of events. So you never know. It ain't over till it's over, because West Virginia was once the height of Clinton country. It ain't no more. Hey, so Don, your books, where do we find them? How do we find out more about you?
Go to Amazon. I don't. They're not going to be in a bookstore, self-published, but they're fun books. People can email me. I can go to my blog, they'll see the email thing. But yeah, Amazon. They're fun books. They're serious, but they're also fun. They're like I try to be like a Trump speech.
Nobody can quite be like a Trump speech. That is, it reminds me of. Do you remember Burt Lancaster and Elmer Gantry?
Yeah.
That's what he reminds me of. But I don't think he's a huckster. I think he's the real deal. But you kind of never know whether you're being led on or whether it's real or not. And that's Trump. That's his art. So the books, just check out Don Surber, search that in Amazon, and it's Don Surber, SUBER.blogspot.com. And Don, really appreciate you taking time out from your busy pro-Trump writing and talking to us. And we will definitely talk to you again.
Okay, thank you, sir. Bye.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.